Okay, good morning. So we will start with the second topic from module number one. So first topic was batteries. We have seen what all are the requirements of batteries for proper charge transfer for any kind of application. Now, in this the second topic and very important topic, and in this we will see how to charge the battery and how to generate electricity for all the other requirements for any kind of vehicle uses or any kind of uses inside the vehicle. We'll find what are the other uses. So, in electrical charging system, as per as your syllabus is concerned, the topics mentioned are generation of DC, shunt generator characteristic, armature reaction, third brush regulation, all these things. So directly we will not see all these things because inside car what we actually generate is a AC. So the second last topic, which is alternator, that thing is very much important. I think this shunt generator, armature reaction, generation of DC, all these things are added in the syllabus because they just wanted students to know how the electricity is generated in the form of DC. But I think you are MTech student, you have studied all these things, shunt generator characteristic, that it gives kind of a constant EMF at the output. Then what is armature reaction? So in Fleming's left hand rule, right hand rule, both what we find is we are generating some kind of electromagnet by giving some external supply. Then we are giving some external supply in case of motor, and we are generating some kind of motion, rotating motion in case of motor. In case of generator, we are connecting some kind of supply to the rotor. That is, we are giving supply so that the rotor can generate some kind of electromagnet, because magnetic field is very much important. And secondly, we are giving some kind of motion, and motion and EMF, both things are there, and we will be generating, sorry, motion and MMF, that is magnetomotive force, is there in case of generator, and it will generate some kind of EMF. So all the reactions in the armature, and there are different kinds of windings, lap winding, wave winding, all those things we have seen. So let us not go too much into the basics of generator and other thing. We know it. What we will do is directly we will go for alternator, and from a vehicle point of view, what are the main details we are supposed to know. So these are mainly theoretical chapters. Mainly we are supposed to know the construction of vehicles, construction of charging systems, and what are the issues with the charging system. That is mainly we are supposed to know. So let us not give much time on shunt generator, generation of DC, armature, brush, whatever you know, basic simple things, that is enough. Directly we'll go for the alternator stuff, that is the AC generator. And then after AC generator there is a rectifier. So AC is produced and that is rectified, and DC is produced from that, and that DC is actually going to charge the battery. So there are different kinds of requirements. So there are mainly three kinds of requirements we will find. One is prolonged requirement, one is instantaneous requirement. So for every requirement, the supply comes from either alternator directly, or it can come from battery. So all these things from vehicle point of view we will see. Okay. So do not get confused with the flow that I am going. Okay, it will not be exactly with the syllabus, but yes, after end of this second topic, you will find almost all the topics are covered. Not exactly as per the content I have shown, as per it is given in the syllabus, but whatever is very much required from vehicle point of view, and the new things that we'll be learning, we will do it. So first thing, let us understand what is the requirement of a charging system. So why the charging system is required? Mainly there are high current demands made from the present day vehicles. So I will show you a graph. You will find that before 20 years, demand from the charging system inside a vehicle was not that much. Okay, but as the new vehicles are coming, all the electronics, all the accessories, all these things are drawing or asking for more and more power from the vehicles. So the high current demand made by the modern vehicles, so the modern, what is very important, are met by the charging system under all operating conditions. Another very important word. So operating conditions, maybe I can be climbing up in a very steep road, then maybe continuous the car is running for 10-12 hours, car has got heated up, or maybe I'm in a minus 15 degrees centigrade temperature region, or maybe the AC is running sound system is running, lights are on, all those things. So too much of demands are there on the battery, or too much of electrical demands are there inside the vehicle. Under that circumstance also, the charging system should be able to supply. So the batteries are also to be charged. That is another thing. The main component of the charging system is the alternator. So this is a generator, AC generator. On most modern vehicles, with the exception of its associated wiring, so there is a wiring, long wiring from the alternator to the battery to the other accessories. This is the only component in the charging system. So alternator is the main generator. It generates AC, and from there, rectifier is there. It converts into DC. DC goes into battery. Battery gets charged, and as per requirement, either alternator is supplying electricity to the components, or the battery is supplying electricity to the component, depending on whether AC is required or DC is required. So if you are having any doubt, you can ask. Just unmute and ask at any point of time. I don't mind. Okay. So the alternator generates AC, which is rectified to DC. So very important line. That's what I have made it bold and underlined it, for charging the battery and to run other electronic accessories within the car. The output of the alternator should be consistent regardless of engine speed and other load. So sometime, suppose other load has suddenly increased and alternator output falls. That should not happen. So even if the other load is there, even if the other load is increasing, then also the alternator output should be constant. The car engine speed is changing, the car speed is changing, then also the alternator should be able to generate electricity at constant rate. So you can see one alternator diagram, SRX alternator. It is taken from the GM media, that is the source. So this is an alternator for a car. Okay. And what are the criteria? That is, charging system must meet the following criteria when the engine is running. So when the engine is running, at that time alternator is running, at that time alternator is producing electricity. When the engine is not running, we have seen at that time battery is the whole and soul, and he is the main generator. So when the engine is running, at that time, what all things we expect from the alternator to do? So alternator has to supply the current demands made by all loads. So any kind of current demand inside the car has to be properly satisfied by the alternator. So supply whatever charge current the battery demands. So for charging the battery also, we need DC. Alternator output is AC. So there has to be a rectifier, and special rectifiers are designed. We will see in this chapter itself. Special designed rectifiers, they are converting the AC into DC, and that DC is going and continuously charging the battery whenever the alternator is on or the engine is on. Operate at idle speed. So those who are driving the car, they know what is the idle speed. So at that time also, the operation should be maintained by the alternator. Supply constant voltage under all conditions. So it is already mentioned previously that regardless the engine speed and other current load, the output of the alternator should be consistent. Alternator have an efficient power to weight ratio. That means alternator should not be 10-15 years back. The alternator size was huge, but as days are going by, electronics, all these things are getting improved. So with a very compact, small size alternator, we can generate huge amount of power. Be reliable, quiet, and have resistance to contamination. So car is something which is under some kind of, there are a lot of dust, there are a lot of moistures, there are heavily varying conditions. Under all these conditions also, the alternator should be highly reliable. It should be generating power consistently, and it should not get contaminated, okay, by all the environmental contaminants. The alternator should not get contaminated. So it should be against, so it should be corrosion resistance and all those things. So components, that is the alternator component, it should be placed quite wisely inside the car. That is, contaminants should not affect its body parts much. So that also we have to see. It should be having low maintenance. So that is a very big requirement for all the components of the vehicle, and should be able to provide an indication to correct operation. So if there is anything going bad, that also should be indicated. So nowadays car, they are wired with many sensors. So constant speed monitoring of alternator, constant output monitoring of alternator are required. So if there is any kind of problem that is coming in case of alternator or engine sound and all those things, we should be able to understand and you should be able to take proper corrective methods. So here you can see one alternator on a vehicle. This is a very important slide. That's what I have put 2 stars. So there is a main components of charging system. First system alternator already is told to you. So AC generator alternator converts the mechanical energy from the engine into electrical energy. So sometimes people call it dynamo. What is a dynamo? So if there is dynamism, if there is speed, the car is moving. So the rotating speed is generated and that rotatory motion is taken into the car, inside the car, and that is actually connected to the alternator. Alternator rotates and generates the power. Okay, so the engine is running the car, and again from the running of the car we are rotating the alternator, generating electricity, and that is going for satisfying all the loads inside the car directly or indirectly. Directly means if there is an AC load, directly the alternator output will be given to it. Source will be the battery. And how the battery is charged? Battery is charged through the alternator AC. The basic principle of an alternator is a magnet, the rotor. So it is to be an electromagnet. So externally we have to give some electricity supply inside the rotor as well. So the magnetic rotor, or it's a kind. There are many poles in that magnetic rotor. It's an electromagnet. It rotates inside the stationary loop of wire. So stator is having a lot of windings. So there can be star winding, there can be delta winding. Okay. So the stator is there and the rotor is rotating inside the center core of the stator. Electromagnetic induction caused by the rotating magnet produces an electromotive force, that is EMF, in the stator winding. So it happens actually for Fleming's right hand rule. So there is a rotating motion, that is the first input, and there is a electromagnet, that means there is MMF, that is magnetomotive force or flux lines. If those two things are there, then there will be generated some EMF. This is Fleming's right hand rule. So the same principle is applied here, and EMF is produced, and it's alternating kind of a EMF. Next, this AC is rectified to the DC. So how the AC is getting rectified to the DC? For that, a full wave bridge rectifier is there. So if alternator is 3-phase, that means we have to use a 3-phase bridge rectifier, and that bridge rectifier will be using 6 diodes in a certain configuration. And certain times we, for very smart kind of bridge rectifier, we are using 8 diodes. Okay, though there are 3 phases, but we are using 8 diodes. Okay, so all those configurations will be shown here. So first there is a generator or alternator, AC generator, then there is bridge rectifier. After that there is coming a regulator. So a regulator is controlling actually the rotor magnetic field strength. Okay, so if we are controlling rotor magnetic field strength, we can control the output from the AC generator. So a regulator is controlling rotor magnetic field strength, and it is used to control the output voltage of an alternator as engine speed and current demand change. So whenever is a variation in the engine speed and current demand, we are actually playing with the magnetic field of the rotor, or magnetic field strength of the rotor. Rotor is an electromagnet, and thus we are actually controlling the output of the alternator. So one alternator you can check at the left side of the slide, it is given. There is some very important details given, that manufacturers actually trying to produce efficient machines, as efficient as possible. So modern alternators, high performance and efficiency are achieved primarily by a dense winding of copper wire in the stator grooves. So we are talking actually about the improvement of the stator winding and construction. So very dense wire is there, very dense winding. So more is the number of conductors in the stator, more will be the electricity produced, current and all these things at the stator will be more. And from the stator only we are taking the output. 3-phase alternator will be seeing shortly. So from the stator, it can be star winding, it can be delta winding. If it is star winding, we are taking out 3 wires. If it is delta winding, sorry, if it is star winding, we are taking out 4 wires. If it is delta, we are taking out 3 wires. But to make the stator very highly efficient, very dense winding of copper wire is used in the stator grooves. So to do so, the wires are first wound on a flat stator core, and which is easier to access. Then the flat stator core is bent into the usual round form. So initially a flat stator core is generated, winding is done on that, and after that it is rounded and the round shape of the core is given. We will be seeing the diagram of stator and rotor core, stator core and rotor shortly. So after the construction, so previous slide is very important, main components, that is alternator, rectifier, regulator, stator, rotor. You have to explain all these five things. Now important, see what are the different types of loads we find on vehicles. So they are categorized into three parts: continuous load, prolonged load, and intermittent load. Intermittent means which is not continuous. Sometime it comes, it goes, it depends on time and place. You can say light is an intermittent load. It is not required at the daytime, but night time it will be required. Something is continuous load, ignition, and all those things. So there's a very big chart we will show you in the next slide. You will understand what is continuous load, prolonged load, and what is intermittent load. The charging system of a modern vehicle has to cope with the high demands under varied condition. This is a very important line, that there can be any kind of variation in the road condition, in the load condition, but the modern vehicle, it should be able to cope up with the high demands of it. So consider the power used by each individual component and add this to get the overall power requirement and totally power fetched from the battery. So that individual power calculation, that will be shown in the next slide. So list of some of the typical power requirements of various vehicle systems is given in the next slide. I'll be showing you. Current drawn at 14 and 28 volts from the alternator. So these are two types of alternators. Some give 14 volt output, some give 28 volt output. And we are supposed to charge the vehicle at 12 volt or 24 volt. Actually, there are two batteries inside the vehicle which are connected in series. So each of 12 volt battery, yesterday we have seen. So in Bosch, there are 2 volt batteries and 6 such batteries are connected in series to get a 12 volt battery. And 2 such 12 volt batteries are again connected in series to produce a 24 volt battery. Okay, so current drawn from the alternator are 14 volt, and this 14 volt is actually charging the 12 volt battery. So yesterday I told you that if it is a 12 volt charging, we don't connect directly 12 volt. So we charge the battery a little bit more than 12 volt because there are some losses. To compensate for the losses, the batteries are taken to around 12.6 volt, 12.7 volt or something. So that's why this 14 volt taken from alternator, and it is used for charging 12 volt battery. Figure in the right, so there is a figure in the right that shows the increasing demands on the alternator over years together with a prediction for the future. So the book was written long back. Now we are already in the future, as mentioned by the book author Denton. So this all things can be found out in the 6th chapter of Denton. So 5th chapter is battery, 6th chapter is the charging system. Now here you can see that till 1980 the requirement on the vehicle was very less, and after 1980 up to around 2000 there was one increment, and after 2000 you are finding that it is exponentially increasing. That is, the load on the motor is exponentially increasing. So huge demand is now there on the alternator, and the design and the research in the alternator has also gone forward, and we can give us very big power output. So that is also possible. So this rise actually is the demand on alternator, and it has increased over the years. So between 80 to 2000 there was one period, so this was linearly increasing with some slope, and that slope has further increased from 2000 onwards, and now it is showing some curve down. Okay, so this is less increment, but in between 2000 to around 2010 you could find a very steep increase on the demand on alternator load. Okay, that means alternator is doing much more work recently. Consumer demand on the alternator is the sum of three things, that is the constant load, prolonged load, and the intermittent load. Next slide will show you different types of loads and how to calculate how much will be the requirement of power at any instant. The demands placed on the charging system therefore are extensive. So charging systems are extensively under pressure. Huge amount of power is continuously being asked from them. So this load is in addition to the current required to charge the battery. So it is not only the requirement by the other accessories in the car, but charging the battery is also there. So charging the battery, you can say it's a continuous load. Okay, likewise. So this is a very important slide. Again, it shows what are the different types of loads, what is the demand on the alternator over the years, how it has increased, and we can see that there are mainly two types of demands on alternator. One is other loads and another is the charging of the battery. Now here you can see the typical power requirements by electrical components of a common vehicle. How to read it? So continuous load, there are mainly 4 or 5 types. So ignition is a continuous, fuel injection, fuel pump, instruments. So these are mainly continuous loads. And ignition is requiring 30-watt power. If you are using a 14-volt battery or 14-volt source from the alternator, you will be requiring 2 ampere. Okay, so 14 volt into 2 ampere is equal to almost 30 watt. But if you are using 28 volt source, you'll be requiring 1 ampere. So 28 into 1 is almost 30. 14 into 2 is almost 30. So this is how we are supposed to know that. So any one column you can check only for 14 volt supply you can check, and that will be enough. Okay, so for fuel injection continuously we require 70 watt power. So if we are using 14 volt supply, 5 ampere will be required. So this is current at 14 volt. So this will be 5 ampere. So 14 into 5 is 70 watt. Fuel pump, it continuously requires some power. So again the 14 volt, 5 ampere, that is 70 watt. And if it is instruments, other instruments, this is 14 volt into 1 ampere, it is almost equal to 10 watt. Okay. So likewise, so total current requirement is 5 plus 5 plus 10, 12 and 13. So this is 13 ampere is the total power requirement, and multiply 13 into 14, you will be getting around 180 watt. Okay, or same way if you are using 28 volt, you will be having the current little less, but voltage is high. So multiply 28 with 6.5, you will be having something like as 181 watt or something. Okay, so this is how you are supposed to read it. So either one column of 14 volt you read. Now just check what is meant by prolonged loads. Okay, so these are continuous load. You cannot do without it. Okay, prolonged load, side and tail lights. Okay, then number plate lights, then headlights, main beam, headlights, dip beam, dashboard lights, radio, cassettes, CDs. So these are mainly electrical loads. If you just check headlight, main beam, so this require 200 watt. If you are using a 14 volt source, then it will be costing 15 ampere. So 14 into 15 will be almost 200 watt. Likewise, prolonged load actually is requiring 18.5 ampere if we are talking about 14 volt source. So multiply 14 and 18.5, we will be finding 260 watt. So what is the total continuous load? It is 180 watt for a vehicle. What is the total prolonged load? It is around 260 watt. And then we are coming to the intermittent load. So intermittent load, it depends on the situation. It is not continuous. It depends on the situation and time and specific application where intermittent loads can be used. Brake light. So whenever you're pushing brake, at that time brake light is required. Then there is indicators, heaters. Heater we are not running always. Wipes, front wipes, rear wipes. So wipes is not required always in all season. Only in the rainy season wipes are required. Heater, blower, heater near window, interior lights, horns, rear fog lights, reverse light, auxiliary. So all these things you can check, and there is power requirement, and total power requirement is 1.7 kilowatt. But this is not continuous. Okay, this is at certain times it is required. So if you are using a 14 volt source, total current requirement is 125.5 for all these things. So at peak, if I ask you how much is the, so everything is operating, let us say, at any condition, and how much will be the power required at that time from the source. So it will be 1.7 kilowatt of intermittent load plus 260 kilowatt, 260 watt of prolonged load, and plus 180 watt of continuous load. So all these three if you add, you'll be finding, so this is around 1700, 260 and 180. So around it will be 2150 watts or something. or 2.15 kilowatt. So that is the worst case scenario. That is the maximum power that the alternator has to supply. And how to read it? Read it that current at 14 volts. So I told you alternators are having 14 volt as well as 28 volt. So let's say front wiper, it requires 80 watt. Okay, so this is 14 volt source if we are talking about 14 volt alternator multiplied by 6 ampere. So 14 into 6 is 84. So that almost equal to 80. Okay, exactly the figures do not match, 2-4 watt here and there. Somewhere it will be more, somewhere it will be less. And likewise, it will come down to 1.7 kilowatt. So worst case, how much will be the power requirement? It will be 1.7 kilowatt plus 180 watt plus 260 watt, around 2.15 or 2.2 kilowatt will be the worst case scenario. Okay, so these are the power requirements we talked about in the previous slide. That is continuous load, prolonged load, and intermittent load. So these are the things that we can find. So you can just remember one or two heads in continuous, one or two heads in prolonged load, and one or two heads in intermittent load. Should be able to explain and how to read this chart. So for any vehicle, this kind of charts are prepared and given to the user. Now this is another very important slide. What are the basic principles of charging system? So you can see here, this is the first type, that is the practical charging. And in practical charging, what we find is alternator is getting, so the car is on, that is the first thing. The car is on, engine running. So alternator is getting charged, sorry, alternator is producing energy, and that alternator is giving energy to the vehicle electrical load. Okay, and if there are some DC requirement in the vehicle electrical load, that is being satisfied by the battery. So both battery and alternator both are giving electricity supply, AC and DC depending on the requirement to the vehicle load. And one very important thing is there, alternator voltage, if it is less than the battery, engine is slow or not running, the direction of the current flow is from battery to the vehicle load. So one very important consideration is there, the alternator, so remember this, alternator voltage when the car is running should be always greater than the battery output voltage. Okay, I'll repeat, always remember alternator voltage should be greater than the battery voltage. So if battery voltage is greater than alternator voltage, at that time battery will start injecting some kind of current towards alternator, and that actually make the alternator bad. Okay, so there should always be current flow from alternator to the battery. So from bottom to the top, there should not be any current flow from the battery to the alternator. It must not happen. But if suddenly the car has stopped, engine is running slow, then maybe we find battery is overcharged, and in that case the battery might give some electricity to the alternator, and by any means we should be able to stop it. What we can do, we can connect diode. So these are protection diodes, we can connect in this direction. So if you are connecting protection diode in this direction, always the current flow will be from positive to negative, always the current flow will be from anode towards cathode. It will not in reverse, it will not happen in reverse. So from battery to the alternator, never there should be any kind of current flow. So this is a very important thing. That is, if alternator voltage sometimes falls below the battery voltage when engine is running or engine is slow, at that time direction of current flow might happen from battery to the alternator. Okay, battery to the vehicle load is okay, but battery to the alternator, it should not happen. That's why we are connecting some protective diodes. Here the current, if wants to start from battery to the alternator, the path is not there, because the current cannot flow from cathode towards anode. It is not possible. And when alternator voltage is greater than battery, the current will flow in this direction and battery will get charged. So this is kind of a application related design, understand that. So this is the first type where both alternator and battery both are charging the vehicle electrical load. This is a practical charging case. What is the ideal charging case? Ideal charging case is a car is running, alternator is generating electricity, alternator is giving supply to the vehicle, alternator is giving supply to the battery. Okay, so this is the ideal scenario. So ideal charging, alternator output is greater than the battery voltage, current will flow from the alternator to the vehicle loads as well as the battery. So this is the ideal case, but it does not happen always. What happens is alternator and battery together, they try to satisfy the vehicle load. So in this case, from alternator also current is coming to the vehicle, from battery also the supply is coming to the vehicle. And this is what is called as, this is the ideal charging. That is, no supply is given. So battery is fully charged. Battery is always fully charged. The battery is required only in case of ignition, in the ideal case. And after ignition, all the loads are supplied by the alternator. Okay, this is the ideal case, but it does not happen like that. Okay, practical case is this one. So when the engine is running, alternator output voltage must always be greater than the battery voltage. This is a very important thing. If not, then battery can try to push some charge towards the alternator, and that actually makes alternator bad. Okay, that's why this protection diode is connected. Now there's a concept of charging voltage. Let us have a very important detail about charging voltage. I already told you, but I'll bring it to you officially. So when the constant voltage charging is there, 14.2 plus minus 0.2. So the range is from 14 to 14.4. This is the voltage accepted for input charging, and this is the voltage accepted from the alternator to charge the 12 volt battery. Very important thing, that what is the charging voltage to charge the battery to 12 volt? It is 14.2 plus minus 0.2 volt. That means either 14 or maximum 14.4 volt is the given the voltage to charge the battery, and the battery will get charged to 12 volt. And such two 12 volt batteries are connected in series to produce a 24 volt battery for any kind of vehicle. Hence, the accepted charge for the source voltage will have to be doubled. So this 14.2 volt plus minus 0.2 volt, 14.2 plus minus 0.2, they should be having very huge current, so that they will be able to charge two 12 volt batteries at a time. So that's why it is said that two batteries in series for nominal voltage of 24. Hence, the accepted charge for the source voltage. What is source voltage? It is 14.2 plus minus 0.2. Okay, so hence the accepted charge for the source voltage would have to be doubled. So even if it is 14.2 plus minus 0.2, when it is charged, it should be having more charge. That means more capacity. And where is this voltage coming from? This voltage is coming from the alternator after rectification. Okay, so alternator should be generating big voltage, that should be converted to DC, and that should be given to a level of 14.2 plus minus 0.2, and this 14.2 plus minus 0.2 volt should be able to charge two 12 volt batteries, and these two 12 volt batteries are connected in series to produce a 24 volt base battery source for any vehicle. This is a very important thing you have to understand. So these voltages are used as for standard input for all vehicle circuits and load. For standard, we will always consider a 12 volt system. So two 12 volt system we'll be considering. While determining the charging voltage for car battery, check. So the alternator is charging the battery. So what all things we are supposed to check while charging the batteries? Number one, any unexpected voltage drop in the charging circuit or wiring. So we are continuously charging the battery. The battery is continuously supplying the load. We should see that there is no any place where the charge is getting unnecessarily wasted. Okay, that is the thing we have to see, so that there is no unexpected voltage drop or short circuit in the car or something. That should not be there. So wiring and all these things continuously we have to check. It should be very perfect. So check for unexpected voltage drop in the charging circuit or wiring. So in the charging circuit as well as in the car wiring, there should not be any fault. Number two, the operating temperature of the system and the battery. Very important thing. The car gets too heated up, the charging actually efficiency reduces. The car is too much cooled down, then also the charging efficiency becomes very less. Okay, so the operating temperature of the system of the battery is a very important parameter while we are charging the 12 volt battery, and the voltage drops must be kept to minimum. The terminal voltage of the alternator may be slightly above the supply to the battery. So we have seen that we are actually charging a 12 volt battery, but from the alternator rectifier we are generating 14 to 14.4 volt. So this is very important details. So this slide number 6 is very important. There are many details. Please check it. Okay. Now the generation of electricity. Those who are from electrical field, they have already seen it. So stator is there. Stator is having different kinds of winding. It can be having stator winding of star type, stator winding of delta type. Okay, so figure in the left, it shows that there is a basic three-phase alternator. So 3 5 means three-phase. Okay, RYB, they are there. And these are the phase relationship between three-phase. They are all 120 degree apart. So electromagnetic induction is caused by a rotating magnet inside the stationary loop or loop of wire. So this is the rotor. This is a magnetic rotor, and this is produced by electromagnet. So through slip ring, we have to connect some kind of external supply to this electromagnetic rotor, and with that supply, the magnetic rotor is rotating. So some external rotating force is also given, so that is coming from the engine and other parts. So we are giving electricity for generating electromagnet. That is the first input, and second input is coming from the car engine, that is which is rotating. So rotational force is there, and through the electric, magnetomotive force is there. So when mmf is there, when rotation is there, by Fleming's right hand rule, it will generate electricity. And the windings in stator is done in such a way that it will be generating three-phase electricity. Each phase is 120 degree apart from each other. So electromagnetic induction is caused by rotating magnet inside a stationary loop or loop of wires. In a practical alternator, the rotating magnet is an electromagnet that is supplied via two slip rings. So this is actually the slip ring somewhere. Okay, it is not shown here, but there is also some kind of coil at the rotor, and that coil is actually supplied through slip ring, and that is getting the electricity and producing the electromagnet. So the electromagnet, which is supplied via two slip rings, brush and all those contacts are there. Basic generator principle of Fleming right hand rule is applied here. We incorporate a rotary motion within the electromagnetic field. As output, we obtain the alternating EMF. Three-phase electricity is taken out from the stator coil. So this is the stator configuration which is shown, and the claw pole rotor. So there is a claw pole rotor which we are finding. It is the common designing which is a claw pole rotor. Each end of the rotor will become north or south pole. That means it gets polarized, north pole, south pole, magnetized. Okay. And each claw will be alternatively north and south. So they are alternatively north and south. There is not a fixed north or fixed south. As they rotate throughout the circle inside the core, so the polarity changes. It is common practice due to the reasons of efficiency to use claw pole rotor of 12 pole or 16 pole. So if it is 12 pole, we say that there are 6 pairs of pole, and if there are 16 poles, we say that there are 8 pairs of poles. So why we require this pair number? Because if we want to determine the frequency of the generated electricity at the time, this number of pole pair, it comes into picture. We'll be seeing in the subsequent slides. So this is actually a claw pole rotor, and this is generally having 12 to 16 poles. Please prepare these things for short question in the IA. So here is a three-phase alternator. I have shown this is called three-phase LIX alternator from Bosch. So the stationary loops of wire, that is the stator wire coil, of 3 separate phases, that is RYB, each with a number of winding. The windings are mechanically spaced on a laminated core to reduce the eddy current. So the lamination of the core, so core is not a solid metallic thing. Okay, it is prepared by lamination. That means pasting of very thin plates. Okay, and these 2 thin plates are pasted by some kind of non-magnetic kind of substance, gum and all. Okay, this actually reduces the eddy current. Eddy current is some kind of a loss which produces heat inside the core. Okay, if we are doing lamination, then the eddy current loss is minimized. Okay, and must be matched to the number of poles on the rotor. So rotor poles and stator pole, they are kind of a same number. So this is a image of a Bosch 3.5 LIX alternator. Now the whole thing is opened up, so you can see here, this is the stator part, this part, and sorry, this is the rotor part. I'm sorry, this is the rotor part which will be rotating, and here it is connected with the rotation input. So that is the whichever is rotational input coming from the vehicle inside, and this rotor rotates, and rotor rotates. So rotor is an electromagnet and it rotates within a stator coil. So this is a stator coil which can be star wound, which can be delta wound. Okay, and it's a 3-phase coil, So three wires are taken out, and these are the kind of a casings. Okay, so this is the stator and other component of the same motor, which is shown here. So the three-phase stator winding may be connected either in star or delta. So it is connected in delta if we require more current, okay, because delta is having line current is equal to root 3 into phase current, that is there. But for star, line current and phase current, they are same. The current and voltage output characteristics are different for star and delta. Star connection can be thought as a kind of a series connection, and delta is kind of a parallel connection. Okay. So current output will be the same for phase and line in case of star, but in case of delta, the line current is root 3 times of phase current. So if we want higher amount of current from the motor, from the generator, in that case we use delta connection in the stator. So star wound rotor therefore produce a higher voltage, whereas delta wound rotor produces a higher current. So same thing, in case of star, we are finding the line voltage is root 3 of phase star connection. And for delta connection, we find that the line current is root 3 times of phase current. So if we want a higher current output, we require or we use the delta connection. So it is given here two types of stator winding. Either star is used here in the stator winding, or delta is used in the stator winding. So star is kind of a status circuit. We find that line voltage is root 3 phase voltage and line current is equal to phase current. Okay. But in case of delta, we are finding line voltage is equal to phase voltage and line current is root 3 times of phase current. So if we want higher current, we use delta. If we want higher voltage, we use star. So these are type of three-phase stator windings we are finding. Now stator winding specifications. Mainly we are using star winding in every case because higher voltage is required. But for some heavy duty machines, some heavy duty alternators, we are using delta winding. So majority of modern alternators using star winding incorporate 8 diode rectifier instead of 6 diodes. So when we are doing the rectification part, I will tell you how is the circuit for this 8 diode rectifier, okay, as to maximize the DC output. So this is first thing is alternator, that part is over. We have already seen it. What is the internal construction, what is the waveform, what is the stator construction, rotor construction, and how to get higher current output, how to get higher voltage output. So for higher current output, you have to use delta. Higher voltage output, you have to use star, all these things. Now we are coming to the rectifier part, and we'll be doing the rectifier part on the next day. But this is a kind of a introduction for that rectifier part. So instead of 6 diodes for 3 phase, we can use an 8 diode rectifier to maximize the output. So alternator output current frequency formula is actually given by P into N by 60, where N is the alternator speed in RPM, that is revolution per minute, and where P is the number of rotor poles. So I have shown in the previous slide that rotor poles can be 12 or 16. So if it is 12, then we take P as 6 because 6 pair is equal to 12. Okay, so don't make mistake. Don't take for 12 poles in the rotor, don't take P as 12. Okay, so if there are 12 poles, you have to take P as 6. If there are 16 poles, you have to take P as 8. Okay, so alternator output current frequency formula is given below. This is particularly important if an AC tapping from the stator is used to run a vehicle rev counter. So a special tapping is taken out from the stator and which can be given to the rev counter, revolution counter. What is a revolution counter? It actually is used to test the revolution, and from there we can calculate how much is the frequency of the generated waveform. And what is the formula for frequency of the generated waveform? It is P into N divided by 60, where N is the number of rotations or revolutions per minute for that alternator rotor. And what is the P? P is the pole pair for the rotor. So P is a constant, okay, but N might vary, okay, because depending on different conditions, the rotational speed of the alternator varies. So in this case, the frequency of the produced waveform also will vary. That is one thing we have to understand. So when the engine is idle, at that time alternator will have speed around 2000 RPM. So for every situation, the speed is kind of mentioned by the designer or whoever is designing the alternator. So when the engine is idle, at that time the alternator will have speed of 2000 RPM. So a 12 claw rotor which is having 6 pole pair they will be having frequency of 6. There is 12 pole mid 6 pair multiplied by total n, that is what is the alternator speed, 2000. So 6 into 2000 divided by 60. So at that time, whatever electricity is produced, three phase, that will be having a frequency of 200 hertz. So I can ask you numerical on this. So I'll give you what is the speed of the alternator, and I'll tell you how much will be the rotor poles, and just you have to divide by 2. If there are 16 poles, you have to take P as 8. So 8 into 2000 divided by 60, or 6 into 2000 divided by 60 will be the output frequency in hertz. So for this output means for the rev counter output. Okay. This output is half wave rectified and is used in particular on diesel engine to drive the rev counter. So revolutionary counter or revolution counter for any alternator is an important thing. It is also used on some earlier petrol engine applications to drive an electrical choke. Okay, so this is all about rev counter. And what is rev counter? Rev counter or tachometers or revolution counters on vehicles show the rate of rotation of the crankshaft of engine, because that thing is actually connected to the input of the alternator, and actually from engine whatever energy is produced, that is actually rotating the alternator, and alternator is generating electricity and it is giving to the battery, it is giving to the other loads. So it's a kind of a closed loop system. Okay, we are increasing the efficiency of the overall system by connecting the same rotating motion of the engine to the alternator, generating electricity and using it. So there is typically a marking indicating a safe range of rotation speed. So rev counter is having a specific range. It helps the driver to select appropriate throttle or gear setting for a particular driving condition. So this is all about rev counter. This is all about stator winding and rotor winding. What is rotor pole? What is the output of an alternator? And after alternator, after the AC is produced, what all things it is doing? So it is giving the supply to the other components inside the car, and it is actually giving the supply to the battery for charging. Battery, there is event which is called as rectification. We'll start with the rectification event next day. So I'm stopping now. So